In the previous video, I showed you how to format your paper as a whole using MLA format. So in this video, I want to show you how to make a Works Cited page using MLA format. So right now, I have a paper that's set up with page numbers, a heading, title, and let's just assume that there is a large body of writing here. So what you want to do, the easiest way to do this really is to put your cursor at the very end of your paper. We're assuming that your paper is at least 1 or 2 pages long, but wherever your paper ends, put your cursor there, go to the Insert tab, and insert a page break. And what's really nice about adding a page break between the body of your paper and the Works Cited page is when you go back and you add more paragraphs, things like that, when you do that, it is not going to affect the formatting of this page. That cursor is still on that first line. It didn't move down, even though we moved down on your paper. So by separating the two, you can continue to work and revise in the body of your paper without affecting your Works Cited page, because your Works Cited page needs to be set up just as specifically as your heading and how you set up your paper as a whole. Again, because if you set up your page numbers the way I showed you previously, when you do that page break, you're still going to have your page number no matter how long your paper gets. So again, you can kind of format and play around up here, and it's just not going to affect your Works Cited page. So the first thing you want to do is add a title to your Works Cited page. And that's it. Works Cited. Boom. Easy. Simple. And something I should mention now that I did not mention in the previous paragraph, with all of your titles, so for the title of your Works Cited page as well as the title of your paper, you do not format it. You do not bold it. You do not italicize it. You do not underline it. You do not put it in quotes. You don't do any of that. It's just very, very simple. And so it may look, oh, well, that's boring. That's plain. Let's spice it up a bit. Well, MLA doesn't work that way. MLA is very simple and very straightforward. So your title might look blah, but that's exactly how it's supposed to look. Okay? So that said, your Works Cited page doesn't need anything other than the words Works Cited with no formatting. All right. So hopefully everything is already in double spacing. If not, make sure that you double space your Works Cited page. Hit enter, align to the right. All right, so the first work that you're going to work with this semester is Cry the Beloved Country by Alan Paton. So I'm going to show you how to format this novel, and it will just give you a head start in how to do a Works Cited entry. So this is your Works Cited page, which is made up of Works Cited entries that accounts for each source that you use in your paper. Hopefully you already know the difference between a primary source and a secondary source. A primary source would be the novel, Cry the Beloved Country. A secondary source would be an article written about that novel. So we're dealing all with criticism this semester. So when somebody writes a critical article about a given text, that's a secondary source. The text that they're writing about becomes the primary source. So hopefully that's just a review. So let's get going here. Let's see how to do this. So the first thing that you need to do is the author's first and last name. The last name comes first, and then you're going to alphabetize these entries based on the last name or whatever entry or whatever information you provide first. Say you're using a poem that is anonymous, does not have an author, you would then start with the title. So everything has to be alphabetized, and you need to do that with whatever information you have. Also, another note, this information changes with the different types of entries that you're providing. So a novel is very straightforward. That's why I'm starting with it. And then I've got an example Works Cited page that I'll show you in a moment that uses articles. And articles are obviously going to be formatted differently in their entry than a novel is. A newspaper is going to be different. An internet source is going to be different, things like that. So that's, again, where the OWL at Purdue comes in handy. They have a very succinct, clear page in their resources of how to format the entries of different research type. So you're going to want to make sure you pay attention to that because how you format your entry is, again, dependent upon the type of source you're working with. So just keep that in mind. I'm showing you how to do a novel. And once you get the hang of it, it really is quite similar. I've had to do this so many times in graduate school that for the most part, I can just do it based off of memory. You may not be there. You may, I don't know. But just try to get the hang of it, realize that there is a pattern, and it actually is a logical pattern. What's the most important thing when you're looking for a book? It's the first and last name of the author. What's the second most important thing? The title. So let's move to the title. Notice that it's in italics. Do not underline it, italicize it. Underlining is technically okay, but it's actually outdated. Back when people were using typewriters instead of computers, they would underline a title or, whatever it is that they want to highlight. They would underline it, and then the typesetter who is actually printing it would know, oh, that actually needs to be italicized. So we don't have to work with typewriters and typesetters anymore. We have computers that italicize it for us. So when you're underlining, you're actually saying, oh, it's supposed to be italicized. So go ahead and italicize it, and you'll be ahead of the game. But really, either works. It's not that it's incorrect to underline. Italicizing is just a little more correct, and let's be more correct, right? All right, so now we have the first and last name, the title. Next, we are going to move on to the publisher. All right, and to find all this information, you just open to the first couple of pages in the book. And I'm sorry, we're not going to start with the publisher. We're going to start with the city in which it was published. Most books have multiple cities that they're being published in, so I usually just go with the first one. You can't be wrong because it's published in multiple cities. So in the edition of Cry the Beloved Country that I have, New York is the first listed city in which it's published. All right. Okay, so there's the publisher. When it comes to the publisher, technically in my book it says Scribner Paperback Fiction. I don't need all that, just Scribner works. So keep your publisher's name concise. You don't need a ton of information. So in this case, that's it. Do a comma, and then the year 1948. Boom. That is it. Okay, let's make sure. Seems really simple because it's a novel, but again, novels are much more simple. That should be it. Okay, the last thing that you want to do is to indicate what medium your source is. So in this case, it's a printed book. The only other thing that you might be using is a web source, hopefully not an internet source, but say a critical article that you pulled off of a database online, which would then technically make it a web source because you pulled it off the web. So in that case, instead of print, you would put web. Sometimes you might do a personal interview. Sometimes you might have a video. And again, all of these little particulars are listed on the OWL website for Purdue. So that's really it. It looks really simple. So let's move on to an example so you can actually see more. Let's see here. What is this? This looks like a book. So you have the first and last name. It's got a really, really long title, but then you've got the city, the publisher, and the date. So this one technically is missing the print because it was written, this is from my graduate work. This was written out before the print requirement came forward for MLA. They change every few years. So for this to be more correct, it would look like that, but just a different time. You can see that there's my page number, there's the title, and take special notice too. It's not something I could show on the one I did for you, but notice that the first line is always aligned on the left, but any subsequent lines after are indented once. So it's kind of the opposite of your paragraphs. So here's my paragraph. The first line is indented, and all the others are aligned. So your works cited page is the opposite, and that helps you see, oh, here's source 1, here's source 2, here's source 3. So all the subsequent information gets indented to highlight when you're starting a new source. Again, last name, first name, title, city, publisher, date. Again, the only thing that's missing is the medium. Don't judge me too harshly. Oh, here is an article. So in this case, again, you have the first and last name. Notice how I have alphabetized A, B, C, kind of convenient. Alphabetized by last name, I don't think I have. Yeah, I always have a last name to work with. But in this case, this is an article. So the article title would go in quotation marks. It's the smaller text. It's a smaller text within a larger text. So the smaller text gets quotation marks. American Literature is the title of the journal itself, and it is italicized just like a book is. And then this is the issue and volume number, the date that it was published, the page numbers, so the page range within this, and of course again the medium's missing, but you can always add that. So you can see that this is very, very patterned. So just because there's an extra title, there's a difference between the journal title and the article title, but it's not a big difference. You can see that, yes, logically, this is all the information you need to know in order to find it. And that is why your works cited page is so important. Not only are you dealing with plagiarism issues, saying, oh, this is not my work, this is someone else's, and here's where you can find it. The main reason to do a works cited page is so other people can find the resources that you're using. When you write your papers, write them as if somebody is reading them and is interested in what you have to say, and they want to find the sources you're referring to. For them to do that, you have to have all of the pertinent information laid out in this way so that they can do that. And an MLA does that for you. It lays it out in such a nice way. Again, here's another book. The only other thing I see that might be different is these guys are editors because they're letters from Stephen Crane. He's an American naturalist. I love American Lit, and Stephen Crane's one of my favorites. And naturalism is one of my favorite time periods. So let's see here. So this is two people. So the first person in the list has their name, last then first. And it says and then the second name is normal, first name, last name. And you also need to indicate if they're editors as opposed to authors. So in this case, technically Stephen Crane's probably the author of his own editors, my goodness. He's the author of his own letters, but these editors have compiled that and turned it into a publication. Okay, so here's a much bigger works cited page that you can look at and kind of reference so that as yours get larger, you'll know that, oh, okay, this is what they're supposed to look like. And let's really quickly go back up here. This is how my paper was formatted. So everything's double spaced. Here's how my heading looks. Here's my title. It looks kind of funny because it's long, but notice again that there are there's no formatting with it. All my paragraphs are indented. So this is how your paper as a whole needs to look. So again, MLA is so much fun, I know. But this is all you need to do. It really is quite simple. So use the online writing lab from Purdue. Let me know if you have any questions during my office hours. And just try to get a hang of it. Try to work with it and make it a habit for you. And the more consistent you are with it, the easier it's going to become, I promise. So again, if you have any questions, let me know, and hopefully this helps you get started.